What's up, guys? Josh here at 1320 Synthetics. I got my new truck here, new to us truck. Some of you have been following us. We're getting it switched over to AMSOIL. We're kind of documenting it as we go, trying to track the fuel mileage. So on the way up here from Florida, first go around, we got 14.3 miles, all highway, cruise control, pulling a trailer. And yeah, maybe probably around 2,500 pounds-ish, not much. We've been back here in Ohio, no trailer. We got a real good mixture after 2,000 miles of somewhere around 15.1 to 15.4 mpg with a mixture of highway and city. This has all been done. We did this right off the rip after we got home. We use this PI performance improver every 4,000 miles. This is going to help restore and maintain a clean valve body, clean valves, clean intake. Depending on the type of injection, obviously. On this one, it's going to be mostly, it's a GDI engine, so the PI is going to be really important for keeping the top of the pistons, keeping that combustion chamber nice and clean, and your compression ratio unchanged. Next, we got the upper cylinder lubricant. We use that every fill up. Pretty expensive. But today we're going to do an oil change to get it switched over to Signature Series 0W20. But before we do that, we're going to run the PowerFoam through the throttle body. This is going to be especially important for prepping the engine before the oil change, because if any of this blow by gets into the crankcase, we want to get that out. This is a real heavy, strong detergent cleaner. You don't want to get this on any plastic on your skin. Try to be careful with it. We're really excited to use this on this GDI engine, this LT from General Motors, because it's a GDI, so the valves on these can get a little cruddy. Those valves get cruddy enough or built up with deposits. It's not going to allow them to seat 100% like they're properly supposed to. So we're going to do this here in a minute. First, we got to get the intake off, expose the throttle body, and then we'll do a step-by-step as we go through that. Once we get done with all that, then we're going to introduce the engine flush. We'll cover that when we get to that point. We've got a few things we're going to do before we get to the oil change. That way, if we get any kind of blow-by or extra deposits breaking loose in the filter, in the crankcase, wherever it may be, we'll be able to have the opportunity to get that out of there and introduce new fluid. So thanks for watching. All right, guys, so we're back. So we got the intake off. We just had the 1.8mm band clamp there, 8mm band clamp there. We have these little intake tubes, just a little push and slide those off, one on each side. So we got that off. Real quick before we get started, we're gonna be real careful not to open or move this manually, since it's electronic throttle body. If it's an older drive-by cable, no worries there. You can move that all you want to when it's not running. But for these, they're real sensitive. If you do happen to move it on your own, be prepared when you start it. It could possibly have high idle issues. Some guys have been lucky enough to drive 200-300 miles and it'll settle out on its own. Other guys have had to go to the dealership and get them relearned. So moving forward, real quick before we get started, I just wanted to mention on the PowerFoam, this is great for 2- and 4-stroke gasoline engines. Anything from a lawnmower, motorcycle, tractor, ATV, and anything with a throttle body, carburetor, anything of that nature. This will get that cleaned up. It's also going to go in there. We're going to do it in 2 stages, 2 to 3 stages. We're going to let it get in there real nice and heavy into the intake, down into each runner, down on the valves. We get about halfway in, we're going to shut it off. We're going to let it sit there and just soak for a little while, kind of really break that stuff up. And then we'll start it and repeat that process as needed. If you've got a vehicle that's exceptionally bad, or a carburetor, you're not seeing the results you can get, you might consider getting a heavy duty degreaser, taking that stuff apart and soaking it overnight, and then going from there. More often than not though, you keep these things clean and they'll perform like new for years to come. So We're going to get started. We've got a helper with us. They're going to get the truck started. They're going to maintain the RPM somewhere around 1,000 RPM. We don't want to let this thing choke and die until we're ready for it to. And then we'll go from there. So you'll go and get that started. And then we'll use a straw and we'll make sure the application is good and accurate. We suspect this truck's got about 99,000 miles on it. We're really unaware of the previous maintenance. So we're real excited to see some real quick instant changes to power, throttle response, acceleration, and fuel economy. This is relatively inexpensive. We usually do this every oil change. Seeing that we go somewhere around 20,000 miles or 1 year on our oil changes, we like to do this every oil change. And we do it before the oil change. Again, that way if something gets broke loose and gets in the crankcase, we can get that out of there. So we're gonna go shut it off, let it set for a little while, and we'll be back. So guys, we're back for round two. Real quick, just want to point out, we haven't used any rags or wiped anything. We can already see a noticeable difference in the cleanliness. In between, while you're waiting for these, we recommend not get too far away, especially if you had a bunch of leftover. Hang out there with the rag. Try to avoid letting too much of that run down. So yeah, we're gonna go for round two. We'll try to stick our head out around the corner. We should start noticing quite a bit of that deposit's coming through the combustion process, and even more so later on when we get it back on the road, get under a load. It should really activate and start removing some of that stuff, that buildup. So go ahead and start it. I'm not sure if this is, might be a lot of you guys first time seeing this product. We've been using it since 2017. We've used it on a wide variety of vehicles, including our own. And we really noticed on that last engine, our last Silverado, we tore it apart. After 340,000 miles, the intake didn't have excessive oil buildup. The runners, you can still see and feel the original cast plastic, the pores in the plastic. We've seen on other vehicles where those tend to be very oily and slimy on the inside. And then we was also able to see the top of our pistons. When we tore that engine apart, there was some buildup and varnish from the combustion process, but it wasn't so bad that we couldn't see the piston no more. So we're real big believers in this. If it's not something you feel comfortable doing yourself, we'd be more than happy to come over and do this for you at your house, or you can stop by our place and do it. The process, product and labor, looking at probably around 20 bucks. I'm gonna go ahead and shut it off. Alright, so we'll let that sit again for a little bit. She's empty, and then we'll move into the engine flush next. We're gonna go ahead and add that in. Before we start it, we're gonna let this sit in there and idle for 15 minutes. You don't want to drive around with this. Very, very heavy detergent. We recommend this for any gasoline, diesel engine before switching over to AMSOIL. Once you have switched over to AMSOIL, their additive package with detergents and whatnot will be more than enough to sustain the cleanability. So, yep, stay tuned. All right guys, so real quick, the engine flush. Again, you want to dump it straight into the crankcase, either side of the valve cover. Usually you're gonna let this sit in there and idle for 15 minutes. Then you're gonna want to promptly get it changed out. Don't let it sit there and cool off. Go ahead and promptly be ready to shut it off, get your oil filter off, drain the fluid, and then install a new filter and new fluid. Again, do not let this sit in there, and do not drive around with it. Other than that, you'd be more than fine to use it in your engine. And we've noticed, especially in these newer engines with the DOD and the AFM, whether it's the General Motors or the SRT, the Hemi, so you know, whatever those, they're very similar style lifters. They've got oil, they got to be stay primed. They've got very small patches in those lifters. If those lifters can't get properly lubricated, then oxidation and grime, dirt deposits and whatnot get built up in those lifters, and it doesn't allow that lifter to prime up fully and hold a pressure. And that's why they collapse, and you start getting chatter because the push rod is no longer long enough because the lifter has started to collapse. So again, that's our reason for using the high quality oil and also using this before we get it in there, because we want to get all that broke up. If there's any kind of deposits in there from the previous owner, whether it be from using generic oil or extended intervals with the inappropriate oil or cheap filters, bad air filters, all of that can lead to contaminated buildup and oxidation deposits inside the engine. This is our go-to for every time before switching over. We've got some guys that use this every oil change. It's not necessary, but it's also not going to hurt nothing. Personal preference for them guys. We typically on our personal vehicles only use it once every time before we switch it over to AMSOIL. This stuff is especially effective on diesel engines for removing soot and breaking that stuff down. Again, this is a non-solvent. It's just a very high detergent, so it's going to be very safe on your seals, O-rings, whether it be front to back, front seal, main seal, valve covers, O-ring pickup tubes, anything that really needs a good quality oil to stay elastic and not harden and shrink. That's usually caused by solvents such as seafoam or kerosene. We've heard some guys using some pretty crazy stuff in their engines. That stuff's not necessary. Just use your good engine flush and switch it over to a good high quality oil and you'll be fine. So thanks for watching, guys. What's up, guys? So we just finished up the oil change. Everything went as expected. Got the 8 quarts installed, got the new filter. Started it up, let it idle, check it. Haven't seen any smoke yet since the PowerFoam treatment, but I got a feeling it's probably going to kick in here in a minute. So we're going to get it started up. Brandy's going to hold the camera. We're going to see if we can't videotape that PowerFoam working.